The night everything changed for Mabel didn't begin with a miracle. It began with a storm. A storm so wild, it didn't just tear apart her home, it tore open a path she never imagined life would take her through. Most people think a life-changing moment feels magical. Hers felt like fear, thunder, and a roof collapsing over her head, and that's exactly where this story begins. If you think love only finds people who already have everything, wait till you hear how a billionaire's son fell for a girl selling fruit on the street, and how his mother almost tore their entire world apart. This is the story of Mabel, a quiet village girl whose life flipped upside down after one brutal night, and how that same twist of fate pushed her straight into the path of a man she never expected to meet. But this isn't a fairy tale, this is a story of class, pride, a mother's fury, and a battle between destiny and status, a battle that got uglier than anyone could imagine. Today, you're going to hear everything. Let's start from the very beginning, before the billionaire, before the heartbreak, before the war. Mabel grew up in a tiny village with one person she loved more than anything in the world, her mother, Patience. Patience wasn't just her mother. She was her strength, her shield, her entire world. Life wasn't easy, the land was hard, work was harder, but they survived, barely. Then came that storm. It started like any other rain, soft at first, then heavy, then angry. By midnight, the sky was roaring like it wanted revenge, wind slammed their windows, rain forced itself through the roof, and before Mabel even understood what was happening, the roof split open and crashed down. Patience grabbed Mabel's hand and they ran out into the darkness, into rain that felt like it was beating the world apart. And when the storm finally calmed, their home was gone, everything they owned was sitting in the mud. Mama, where will we sleep? Patience held her daughter close. This village cannot help us anymore. We're leaving for the city. And so they did. The city hit them like a slap, noise everywhere, people shouting, cars honking like chaos was the official language. They found a tiny single room in a crowded building, barely big enough for two people to breathe. Patience used almost all their savings to pay rent and buy a tray of fruit so Mabel could start selling by the roadside. And just like that, the girl who once played under mango trees became the girl who stood under the scorching sun selling bananas and oranges. But even in the heat, even in the noise, Mabel had something people couldn't ignore: quiet kindness. She smiled at everyone, greeted customers respectfully, worked without complaining. And that's exactly what caught his attention. Frederick was everything Mabel wasn't born into: wealthy, educated, protected, respected, the only son of billionaire businessman Richard, and the one woman nobody in the city dared to cross, Margaret. Frederick wasn't the type who slowed down for street sellers. His car alone cost more than most people made in a lifetime, but one morning, he noticed her daughter, simple girl, arranging fruit with a gentle smile. Hair in neat braids. Skin glowing under the sun. Eyes soft, innocent, peaceful in a world that wasn't peaceful at all. He looked once, then again, and something inside him moved. The next day, he looked for her again, and the next. Soon, passing that junction every morning became the part of his day he secretly looked forward to. But their first real conversation didn't happen because of fate, it happened because of humiliation. One afternoon, a rude man argued with Mabel over the price of oranges. When she refused to sell them cheaper, he snapped. "You village rat," he shouted at. Then he slapped her tray, spilling all her fruits onto the street. People watched, nobody helped, not one person moved. Mabel dropped to her knees, trying to gather her scattered fruit with shaking hands, fighting tears, and then a shadow appeared beside her. A clean hand, a hand that had never touched dirt, picked up a fruit next to her. She looked up. It was him, Frederick, the billionaire's son, kneeling on the ground beside her. The entire street stopped breathing. "Sir, you don't have to," she whispered. "I want to help," he said gently. The rude man recognized Frederick and immediately ran away. But Frederick didn't care about him. He cared about the girl picking fruit in the dust. When they finished, he stood up and said softly, "My name is Frederick. What's yours?" "Mabel," she whispered. That moment changed everything. Frederick began stopping by every morning. Sometimes he bought fruit he didn't even want, sometimes he just asked how she was doing, sometimes he drove slower just to see her smile. Mabel tried not to show it, but her heart beat faster every time she saw his car approaching. Her mother noticed. "My child," Patience said one night, "be careful. City men can be sweet today and bitter tomorrow." But even she couldn't deny that Frederick seemed different. One afternoon, Frederick finally asked, "Can I take you and your mother to lunch?" Mabel froze. Lunch, in a restaurant? She agreed, shyly. When Frederick arrived to pick them up, the whole neighborhood came out to stare. A billionaire's son, opening the door for a poor woman and her daughter, that alone was enough to start rumors. At the restaurant, he treated them with respect, something they weren't used to receiving. Patients blessed him afterwards, but destiny wasn't done with them, because someone else saw Frederic's car that day, and that someone was his mother. Margaret was a woman who controlled everything: her home, her reputation, her son's future. And she already had a perfect woman chosen for Frederick. Tracy, beautiful, educated, wealthy, approved by every high society mother in the city. So when Margaret saw Frederick's car driving in a poor neighborhood and heard people whispering that he had a girlfriend there, her heart dropped into anger. That evening, she waited for him like a storm waiting to explode. The moment he stepped into the house, Frederick. Come here. Mother, good evening. Don't good evening at me. Who were those people in your car? Frederick stayed calm. A mother and her daughter. From where? He met her eyes and said quietly, from a place you refuse to see. Margaret gasped. Are you insane? Poor people? Street sellers? In your car? Eating lunch with you? Do you know how society will laugh at us? Is poverty a disease? Mother, he asked. That question, that one sentence, broke something inside her. You will not embarrass this family because of some roadside girl. Her voice shook the house, and her name, Frederick said calmly, is Mabel. That was the last blow. Margaret pointed at him with shaking hands. Over my dead body. That same week, Tracy confronted Frederick at his office. You don't call me. You don't check on me. You're distant. What's wrong? He didn't answer at first. Is there another girl? No. There's no relationship. No promises. Nothing, he said honestly, but Tracy wasn't stupid. She could feel it. There was someone who made him softer, someone whose presence changed him. Do you still want to marry me? She whispered. His silence said everything. We should slow down, he finally replied, and just like that, everything Tracy thought was certain, shattered. All Mabel ever wanted was a simple life. A roof. A way to help her mother. Peace. Yet somehow, she walked into the heart of a man who was supposed to marry someone else, a man whose mother was willing to go to war for her idea of status, a man torn between duty and destiny. And even though Frederick hadn't confessed love, even though Mabel tried to hide her feelings, one thing was already clear: this wasn't just a chance meeting, this was the beginning of a battle. A battle between a mother's pride and a heart that refused to follow the rules of society, and the story was far from over. Thanks for watching Wild Snip Stories. Wild Snip brings you stories that feel real. Stories that touch your heart and shake your soul. Moments you'll remember long after the video ends. Voices that stay, feelings that linger. Wild Snip, where storytelling becomes an experience.